So friends, welcome. In this video we shall discuss basic features of checks, promissory notes and bill of exchange. What are the protections available to the bankers if they make payments as tellers to any pays account or bearer check or any endorsed check. So we'll discuss all this, what protections is available, what is a check, how we define a check, what is bill of exchange, promissory note, right? So negotiable instrument. So Negotiable Instrument Act was passed in 1882. It was of English origin, right? So we'll just go one by one slides. So Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. What is negotiable instrument? As per section 13(1), a promissory note, a bill of exchange, or a check payable either to bearer or order, right? Bearer means whosoever holds that check or promissory note. A bill of check is the bearer and order to whom it is ordered. So a promissory note, bill of exchange, check either payable to bearer or order. I'll explain how bearer and order in separate video in that. The important presumption is it was made, drawn, accepted and endorsed for consideration even when not mentioned. So consideration means there should be some consideration. Suppose if I am issuing a check to that person, I should owe a certain money to that person, or I am doing any business. If I am making a payment means as a buyer I have purchased certain goods from the seller. So there has to be a certain consideration, like demand promissory note. I have taken a loan from the bank. So I sign a demand promissory note in lieu of that also, right? So it is assumed that even if it is not returned, we assume that some consideration is there. Section 4 of NI Act, the instrument, what is promissory note, right? So the promissory note, Indian rupee note is also a promissory note, but it is a demand promissory note. So a DPN is prohibited to be issued. A bearer promissory note is prohibited to be issued by anyone other than government or RBI. The promissory note must be in writing. It should be an unconditional undertaking. It should be clear about the sum of money and money only. It should be certain about the person to whom it is to be paid. Amount money, that should be specific money. It should not be just pay him some thousands to that person, so and so person. So that thousand should be 20,000, 30,000. A certain money has to be mentioned, and a person has to be maintained in promissory note. Like we take overdraft limit, we as a borrower we ask him to sign a demand promissory note. The DPN is when bank needs to recall the loan, it can issue a order to the customer, please close the account as per any requirement. What is bill of exchange? Section 5 of NI Act. It should be in writing. It should contain an unconditional order to pay. It should be signed by the maker. It should have the three parties, and parties must be certain. There has to be real parties, means individual parties. It should be clear about the money and money only. The goods cannot be there, only money has to be mentioned here. What is a check? It is a bill of exchange drawn on a specified banker, and it is payable on demand. The bill of exchange, a check will always be paid by the bank of the customer who has signed the check. The drawee is always a bank in case of a check. The bill of check is a bill of exchange where the drawee is always a bank. It is drawn on a specified banker, and drawer is the one who is signing the check. Payee is the one in whose name that check has been written by the account holder. So parties to a check, there are three parties: the drawer, the account holder, signed A, you can see the one who is signing the check, signed A, extreme right hand side of your corner. Bank, he is the drawee, bank is the drawee, and pay is pay to B. The B is the pay, the person entitled for a payment. So suppose I am A and I issue a check to B. I am a drawer, B is payee, and corporation bank is drawee, always a bank. Distinctive features of checks and bill of exchange: drawee check banker, bill of exchange any person, buyer and seller. Acceptance not required. Bill of exchange acceptance is required by the buyer. Payment on demand. Here it may be usance, it may be on site bill of exchange. So we add 3 days into the usance bills, otherwise on site it has to be paid within 3 days. So grace period is not allowed in case of check. So bank cannot hold a check, please give us a 3 days of period, after that we'll make the payment. They have to pay on demand. Whenever the payee demands, the bank has to pay to the payee. Crossing possible, bill of exchange you cannot cross. The check can be crossed wherein only that pays account will be credited. So check you can cross, the cross check, it will go to the payee's account only. No cash can be taken from the counter of a cross check. Bill of exchange, it is not possible. Dishonor notice cannot be given in a check. Bill of exchange is presented to the buyer. If he refuses, then dishonor notice has to be given. Stamping not required and required in some cases. Stop payment possible. You can stop a check but not possible in bill of exchange. If it is drawn, then buyer has to make the payment, right? How to negotiate by delivery. Bearer instruments are negotiated by delivery only. You hand over a check to a person when the instrument is a bearer instrument. Section 47. Section 48. Endorsement and delivery when the instrument is payable to order. You cut bearer right in place of that order. So payee will get the payment, or the person who payee orders to whom on the back of the check, he will get the payment. And there can be a series of endorsements, and if the space falls short on the back of the check, a page can be attached or stapled with the check, which is called allonge, A-L-L-O-N-G-E. What is endorsement? Writing a person's name on the back of the instrument, right? So it can be for any purpose, intention. It can be he owes a certain money to someone. To transfer the rights of the instrument, section 15. So suppose a check was issued to B, right? So on the back of the check, he can write pay to X and B will sign himself. Then X will further endorse it to Y, pay to Y and sign himself as X. And then there can be series, and who is the last endorsee, he will get the payment. Valid endorsement, it must be on the instrument or the attached paper, that is called allonge, A-L-L-O-N-G-E, made by the maker or the holder, signed by the endorser, completed by delivery of instrument. You have to deliver the instrument to the last endorsee for the entire amount of the instrument. It cannot be for a fraction of a check. Suppose I issued a check for rupees 1 lakh. So you cannot endorse in portions 40,000. You have to endorse full 1 lakh of check which has been issued by the drawer. For the entire amount of the instrument, with or without name of the endorsee, there has to be name. A change in what is an alteration? A change in the instrument which materially alters the content and the format. Alteration in date, alteration in name, alteration in amount, addition of a new party, alteration in the rate of interest, that is in case of bill of exchange. So date, if the check has become stale, it can be revalidated under full signatures of the drawer. Rest all other alterations are not allowed as per check truncation system nowadays. What is not an alteration? Filling blanks in the cohort instruments, blank endorsements into full endorsements. There may be in certain cases, suppose a last endorsee, a payee just signs his on the back of the check, it becomes a bearer check, and any person can write a name on above the payees or endorsees, last endorsees signatures also, that we call it incoherent, incomplete instruments. Making conditional acceptance, section 86, crossing and uncross check under section 125. This is not an material alteration. What is crossing? It is a direction to the banker not to pay the check across the counter but only to the account or to the other bank. No cash payment against the cross check is allowed. This is called normal crossing. General crossing, section 123, special crossing 124, not negotiable crossing 130, and account pays crossing. So here I can draw two parallel lines, or I can write and co, or two parallel lines, pays account only, account pays only, and I can write to pay to B, then that check will be going into the base account only. Although the bearer is written here, only B's account it can be. Yes, it can be altered if he signs crossing cancelled and the drawer of the check signs in full A. Then this pays account or cross check can also become a bearer. But if there are two parallel lines and co is written or pays account only, then it will go to base account only, or we call it, although there is a bearer written it, but it will not be paid in cash. Spatial crossing. I know B's account is in Canara Bank. So I'll draw two parallel lines and I'll write in between Canara Bank. So this is called spatial crossing. So B's account in Canara Bank will only be credited. If B is having an account in Allahabad Bank or State Bank, that account won't be credited. This is called spatial crossing, just to make it more sure and accurate. Not negotiable crossing. It cannot be negotiated. Pay to be not negotiable. Account pays, B's account only. Section 8. Any person entitled to in his own name to the possession of a negotiable instrument is called a bearer, or person who has to recover or receive the amount due thereon from the parties. So there has to be a certain consideration. Possession or rights to recover are important. So check to be bearer, person possession has to be there, and right to recover are also important in that case. Section 9, holder in due course, right? He has given a valuable consideration for the instrument. He has become the possessor before the amount mentioned became payable. He took delivery of the instrument without sufficient cause to believe that there any defect exists in the title of the person delivering it. The bill in his hands was complete on the face of it. But that is called holder in due course. He has given some consideration to the instrument, and therefore he becomes the possessor before amount mentioned became payable. So he is holder in due course. So even if there is any defect in the check or any instrument, and he has given any consideration to the person, he accepts this check, that will be a holder in due course because he has a consideration behind this. Payment in due course, section 10. Payment in accordance with the apparent tenor of the instrument means if it is bearer, then to bearer, pays account to account of the only, right? If it is order check, to the last endorsee. And if a payment is made in good faith without negligence to the person in possession thereof under circumstances which do not afford a reasonable ground of believing that he is not entitled to receive the amount, is called payment in due course. The bank is not liable if the check has been paid as per the apparent tenor of the instrument or the check. Section 85 gives protection to the paying banker, whosoever is paying the bank. Bearer instrument banker is protected. If a bank pays to any person of a bearer check, he is protected. Either the payee or the maker of the check cannot question the bank, why have you made the payment? Bank will say this was a bearer check, and then under section 85 I get this protection here. If he pays a bearer check to the bearer, therefore notwithstanding any endorsement in blank on full thereof, provided the bank makes in payment in due course as per the apparent tenor of the check. That is called section 85, payment of a bearer instrument. 85.1, order instruments. Banker is protected if he pays an order check by payment in due course to a person who purports to claim under a valid endorsement. Banker is protected even if the endorsement is forced. This is very important. Even the endorsement is forced, if the bank makes payment, he is protected under section 85.1, that is endorsements. 128, for a cross check, if the account is credited, section 128, check is crossed but does not seem to have been crossed, paying banker is protected by payment in due course, but the onus of proof lies on the banker, right? So bank does not seem to have been crossed, So this is a protection under one section 128. 131, the one who is collecting the check in the clearing. Valuable protection to the collecting banker who collects the cross check, not liable to true owner for conversion in good faith, even though his customer's title to the check proves defective. If he is credited his account, he is protected under section 131. Protection against conversion. The payment should be received for a customer. The banker must be collecting agent, not a holder. Banker must have received the payment in good faith and without negligence. This is again for collecting banker. The customer for whom he acts must be his own customers. So they may be of course they will be having an account with the collecting bank itself. Protection against conversion. The check must be crossed generally or specially to himself. The bank is also protected when it gives a provisional credit to the customer in anticipation of the credit. A banker cannot claim protection if the above conditions are not complied with. Assignment requires a written document. Consideration must be proved. Notice must be given to the assignee to the holder. Assignee takes the instrument subject to all defects in the title of the transferor. Assignee cannot sue third party in his own name. So there has to be a consideration in case of assignment. Check truncation. It should be the duty of the banker who receives payment based on electronic image of a check, truncated check, held with him to verify prima facie a genuineness of the check to be truncated, and any fraud, forgery, tampering apparent on the face of the instrument that can be verified with due diligence and ordinary care. Conditions to be fulfilled. Payment should be received for a customer. Banker must be agent. So this is a protection given for under check truncation system for collection, not as a holder. Payment must have been received in good faith and without negligence. For his own customer duly introduced, check must be crossed generally or specially for himself. Bank is protected when it gives provisional credit to the customer in anticipation of the credit. Section 138. Drawer of a check issued without balance in the account shall be deemed to have been committed an offense. This is Negotiable Instrument Act, NI Act. Now there is a Payment Settlement Act which was came into existence after this. Electronic ECS and NASH also started. So under Section 10 of Payment and Settlement Act, same provisions apply in case ECS is bounced back or NACH, National Automated Clearing House entry is returned due to insufficient balance, will be the same as per section 138 of NI Act when the check is dishonored due to insufficient balance. So the payee or the endorsee can go to the court and sue the issuer of the check for non-payment of the check. And penalty is 2 times the amount of the check or 2 years rigorous imprisonment or both. NB shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 2 years or a fine which may extend to twice the amount or the both. Information by the payee to the drawer regarding dishonored check to be furnished within 30 days. A notice has to be given. Section 141. Nominated director of a company owned or controlled by the government exempted from liability or prosecution on account of dishonor of check for insufficient funds. 142. Courts concerned now empowered to take cognizance of complaints made after the prescribed period within 1 month if the complainant satisfies the court that he had sufficient cause for not making the complaint within such period. So exemption is granted by the court in certain circumstances if the complaint for dishonor of check under section 138 or section 10 of Payment and Settlement Act is not filed with the court within 1 month. Whereas earlier courts were not empowered, now they have been empowered. 143 to 47. Courts empowered to try the case summoned on a day-to-day basis, and they can hold court proceedings also. Section 143 also stipulates that cases shall be conducted as expeditiously as possible. and an endeavor shall be made by the court to conclude the trial within 6 months from the date of filing the complaint to facilitate quicker disposal of the case. So this is 143. 144 provides for serving summons even by speed post or courier services approved by the court, furnish acknowledgement purported to be signed by the accused or witness, or endorsement purported to be made by any person authorized by the postal department or the courier services that accused or the witness refuse to take the delivery of summons. In such case, the court issues summons may declare that summons have been duly served. 145 provides evidence on affidavit and also prescribes procedure for dispensing with the preliminary evidence of the complainant, that is CRPC 100. If a person gives an affidavit, that is considered as insufficient evidence of bouncing of the check. 146 presumption according to the bank slip or memo disclosing the fact of dishonor of a check for want of insufficient funds until such fact is disproved. Bank officials need not be summoned to adduce evidence or dishonor of check. Check should have been drawn for a payment of a debt or other liability which is legal enforceable. Cognizance of the offence committed can be taken only if the complaint were made by the payee or the holder in due course. Complaint should be made within 1 month from the date of failure of which drawer to the payee of the payee. The court inferior to that of Metropolitan Magistrate or Judicial Magistrate of first class shall be competent to try cases under 1 Section 38 or Section 10 of Payment and Settlement Act. 147 Section of NI Act. Notwithstanding anything contained in the Code of Criminal Procedure Code 1973, any offence punishable under the Act shall be compoundable. So I hope we covered a lot into this Negotiable Instrument Act. We covered what is bill of exchange, what is check, what is crossing, general crossing, special crossing, then very important, dishonoring of checks or bouncing of checks or bouncing of ECS or NASH, maybe EMI or anything. So the complainant can file a case Metropolitan Magistrate under 1 Section 38 of 138 of NI Act or Section 10 of Payment and Settlement Act in case ECS or NASH is bounced back, and the case should be decided within 6 months. So any questions, any doubt, feel free to connect with me. I'll be very happy to answer your queries. So this was another very important topic. As a banker, I think you must know. So those who are trying competition exams also, these things will be very, very useful. I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you.